we've got, there's an obvious question that I have, going back to some of the inequities that you experienced. Can you give me like one or two examples of this? The reason I'm asking this too, and just forgive me while I get this out there, I grew up in a house full of women, and my first residency directors were women. I have nothing but the highest regard and respect for women. I don't see them as a gender. I see them as my colleagues or as my peers, or it never crosses my mind to either look down or belittle, or have even some kind of subliminal feeling that they're inferior to me. It just doesn't compute. So I'm just wondering, in this day and age, how this is still, prevalent, or to the extent that we feel this need that we have to constantly be pushing this.
I'm so glad you asked that. So I could give you examples that would last like hours and hours, but I'll just give you a couple that I think are the most obvious, because you make a really good point where a lot of people don't experience these things or don't see these things. My husband, who I love dearly and is a wonderful person and is also a physician, he told me when I started doing all these things, he said, I don't understand why you need to do this. What challenges are you facing that, your male colleagues aren't facing? Now, at this point, him and I have known each other since medical school, and he and I had talked, and things had happened to me, and I would tell him this had happened, and he was like, that kind of stuff never happens to me. Maybe it's because of this, or maybe it's because of this reason. And we, both of us together, would sit down and try to brainstorm why these things were happening. And both of us didn't realize at that point that it was a gender thing. Now, he actually attended both years, the symposium and then the summit. After he attended, he told me, he said, I had no idea that all of these other people across the country are having the same issues you did, and it's not because of something they did. And it was like an eye-opening experience for him. And this is somebody who, he is one of my biggest champions. I mean, he believes that, women and men are equal, and he is a champion for it, and he has seen these things even though they were happening in front of him. So
can you share a specific, like a really nail one?
I'll give you two or three. So one actually happened when he and I were dating. We were in med school, and somebody came up to him, and I was considering being a surgeon at that point because my dad is a surgeon and I love surgery.
Sure.
And this one was more overt, where a surgery resident came up to him and said, you need to stop dating her if she wants to be a surgeon, because there's absolutely no way that your marriage is going to survive. And actually, you probably shouldn't date her if she wants to be a doctor at all. I'm marrying this woman who's not in the medical field because I need somebody who's going to be home taking care of me and making sure that dinner's on the table. So that was a very overt thing. And that happened, that was like 15 years ago. More recently, when I found out I was pregnant with twins, an older gentleman who considers himself to be very equitable put his hands on my belly and said, well, this wasn't supposed to happen. What are you going to do now? And I said, well, I'm a woman and I'm pregnant, and that happens. So I'm not sure what your question is. It was just very awkward. And I think he was trying to be funny, but the way he implied it was, you're a new attending, you're not supposed to get pregnant when you're just starting a practice. What were you thinking? I had another person who also considers himself to be very much an advocate for women. We were in a meeting, and I had spearheaded an initiative. I had conceptualized it. I'd done all of the work for it. It was my initiative. And we were sitting down and talking about how we were going to go out and promote it. And he told me, Shikha, I know you've worked really hard on this and you've done 99% of the work, but we don't just want another pretty face out there. So we're actually going to have this senior male physician be the one who is promoting and talking about the conference. And at the day of this event, you won't be leading. He'll be up there introducing people and doing all of the things that I thought I would be doing, because I was the one who put all the work in.
You did the work, yeah.
And the two comments that were made, one was, we don't just want another pretty face out there. And the second was, well, think of it like a research paper where you're junior and the other person's gonna get all the credit. And I said, but they've done none of the work. I'm gonna have to teach them everything about what we put into this. And they said, well, that's your job. So I mean, these are just a couple of examples. I've had people tell me not to go up for leadership positions because I should be focusing on my kids at home. I was interviewing for a job, and someone told me, this gentleman actually told me, because it was a part-time position, and I wasn't sure if I was interested in part-time. And he said, well, we want you to stay part-time because we're assuming you're going to want to have more children. And so we want to make sure we give you the flexibility to be at home for your family. And I said, but I'm capable of balancing, my life and my work, and no one's asking my husband these questions. So why does it matter if I want to have more children? And he said, well, you're a woman. And so we're just assuming you're going to take maternity leave and you're going to need time off and you're going to want to be part-time.
And when did this happen?
I was going to say something too.
That was when I was looking for my first job out of fellowship. So that was about 5 years ago that happened.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're pointing out some really interesting things that I think are easy for me to overlook, and that is, when you talk about creating equality, people tend to focus on the numbers, and there's no question that the numbers of women in medicine have increased, but clearly there are some things to think about way beyond the number of women around, and this is really profound. I'm enjoying this.
Thank you so much for joining us for the discussion today. If you would like to learn more about our guest, head on over to our Patreon page, where you can access exclusive content, including the full segment of our show. Never want to miss an Inside the Doctor's Lounge clip? Be sure to click the subscribe button to our MD Coaches YouTube channel. As always, we appreciate suggestions for future show topics. Let us know what you're thinking in the comments below. And finally, special thanks to Ryan Jones, who created and performs our theme music for the show.